I love a good road trip, so when my high school best friend invited me to his bachelor party in Vegas, I couldn't resist, especially as it gave me an excuse to drive from San Francisco to Vegas. I think I was more excited about the drive itself than I was about the bachelor party. 2 days before the bachelor party was set, I left my tiny but unbelievably expensive apartment for what I thought would be the best road trip of my life. I was stoked to drive through the Mojave Desert as I had heard about how beautiful it was. The stories of cults and drivers missing, never to be found again, didn't deter me as the danger itself added its own kind of excitement. The ride leading up to the Mojave Desert was uneventful, aside from some crazy jerkwads that I had to share the road with. I made sure to stop for gas and some snacks before the desert itself, as I didn't want to run out of my much-needed supplies during the long drive through. Upon reaching the Mojave Desert, my radio cut out. This was expected, as I knew there was no service and I didn't have satellite radio. I never cared enough about the oldies or comedy channels to cave in and buy, despite my father's protests. I was amazed with the beautiful scenery that I drove past. I had never been in a desert before, and it really blew my mind. After half an hour, I started to miss the sounds playing from the radio, and decided to try the knobs to see if I could pick up a signal. This was when I found 106.8 FM. I was very surprised to hear an announcer say, "Welcome to 106.8 FM." I figured a station must have finally spent the money to reach the silent desert. For 15 minutes, the station played the regular songs you'd expect from a radio these days. But after this, things started to get weird. The radio announcer, now replaced by a female, quietly whispered into the microphone, "They're watching you." The announcer then started to read an ad. Thinking I just misheard her, I continued listening. After what I've been through, I regret this. After the announcer read the ad, I heard a door open. "Get out," said the announcer from before. Then I heard a loud smack, followed by some shuffling, and the first announcer saying, "Sorry about that, everyone. Janine must have thought it was her shift." Figuring that this was just a practical joke, I stayed tuned in for more. Next, a song played. It was a song I had never heard before. The song started with a single violin playing. I thought it was just some obscure classic, until I heard some quiet whimpering and crying coming out of my radio. The violin then started playing louder, I assumed to mask the horrible sound of the distressed human. As soon as the clock changed from 2:59 to 3 in my car, the song cut out. "Now folks, it's time for everyone's favorite game. What part of Alice should we mutilate today? Call in and let us know." My dumb brain told me that this was just another joke, until a new voice spoke over the radio. "Cut her leg?" The voice sounded shy and timid, but I had little time to think about it as I heard a saw rev up and meet flesh. After 5 seconds of unimaginable pain, the saw stopped, and I could hear crying, the same as during the strange violin solo. I had to pull my car over and throw up the beef jerky I had finished an hour ago. After 5 minutes of stoppage, I got back into my car and turned off the radio. I couldn't handle it anymore. 45 minutes outside of Vegas, I made the mistake of turning my radio back on. I was immediately greeted by name. "Craig Millwood, welcome back. We didn't think you'd return, but I guess you're just as sick as the rest of us. Buddy, this one is just for you." I started shaking and had to pull over when I started to hear a child scream. I tried turning the radio off, but it still played the horrible sounds of a child slowly being cut to pieces. At this point, I started punching my radio until the noise became distorted, and then thankfully stopped. I could still see that I was connected to 106.8 FM, but now I couldn't hear it. As soon as I made it into Vegas, I lost my connection to the station. I drove to the nearest police precinct I could find, crying the whole way. As soon as I made it into the door, I told the nearest officer what had happened. She looked at me like I was crazy for a solid 30 seconds, and calmly told me that there were no radio stations broadcasting into the Mojave Desert, and that I must be hearing things. With nothing else to do, I drove to the hotel the bachelor party had reserved rooms for, and unpacked all my things, drank those little shooters some hotels have in their mini fridge, and tried to fall asleep. When this didn't work, I stared at the ceiling of my hotel room. I just couldn't get the horrible station out of my head. I tried watching TV. I tried drinking more. I showered till my skin turned red. I went for a walk, but had to run back to my hotel room after paranoia told me that someone was following me. Eventually, I just laid in bed and stared at my ceiling again, trying to rationalize everything I had heard. Sometime later, I checked my phone. The clock showed 2:59 a.m. Soon as the clock changed to 3 a.m., I heard a soft knock at my door, and the voice that haunted my thoughts says quietly, "Don't worry, Craig. We'll be back on the air soon. Please help me." Edit. Hello, everyone. All a misunderstanding. If you've ever been driving through the Mojave Desert, tune in to 106.8 FM.